Hey everyone, in this video, I am going to cover why aggressive people, narcissistic people, or arrogant people are the nightmare of any communicator, what are the consequences of this personality type, and how to actually make them break, and my experience in doing this. So first, let me tell you about dominant people or aggressive people. What happens is, they have a specific influence archetype, as I call them. What happens is, they are people who are very logical and they're very fast in their thinking. In other words, they only care about winning, they only care about showing why they're better than others, and they only care about winning something that's exclusive, that other people can't get. They are obsessed with subjugating other people and showing their power over them. So they're the type of people who don't really make concessions in a communication or in a negotiation. And they're also the type of people who are very emotional, okay? Most of the times, they're just babies. They will blow up any negotiation just because they felt offended or disrespected or a similar emotion. It's very interesting because, in my opinion, I would even argue that dominance cannot establish any successful long-term relationship with anybody. Because what happens is, when you have, for example, successful negotiations, maybe you give a little bit more at the beginning, maybe you take a little bit more the next stage, and so on. But you keep it balanced so that you can have a good relationship with the other side. But now the dominant, they're the type of person who wants to maximize what they gain at every stage of the journey. And worse than that, they want to show the other side that they made them lose. So they're the type of people who don't really make friends or acquaintances in the long term because they only care about what they gain and they only care about their short term. They really don't care if there is another negotiation or another relationship after this. The only thing that they care about is getting as much as they can in this specific instance, even if they burn the bridge afterwards. So you see them, for example, as high-pressure salesmen that just maximize what they gain in a position. They make no friends and they keep no clients. They just jump to another position and they keep on switching throughout their careers. For example, and I don't want to generalize here naturally, but this is a pattern that I've observed in my own life. So let me tell you about my life in my examples. In my own career, I've always been the friendly person, and this type of person in specific is usually targeted by the dominants. Because what they see is, they try and sense weakness, and if they sense weakness, they are going to explore it as much as they can. So what happens is, throughout my life, in any corporate situation, and even as a coach with some clients, they would see that I'm the type of friendly person and very relaxed, and they would think, okay, let's take advantage of this person. So what would end up happening was that, at the beginning, I did not protect myself, right? So they would just ask for more and more, and I would just give it to them, right? Because I think, hey, this is an interesting business opportunity, or it's an interesting career, and if I challenge them, then something may go wrong here, right? So this is the type of thinking that many people may go through as well. But what I've realized over time is that these people just don't get better at all, and I mean it. If you think for any reason that by you making concessions to convince a dominant is going to make them appreciate you, or is going to make them make concessions in the future, you need to step out of that illusion, because it's not going to happen. Throughout the years, whether be it with a manager or with a client, what I've noticed with the dominant is that if you appease the dominant and you give them everything that they want, they are going to come and take for more. The only way that you are going to stand up to them is, well, by standing up to them. So what happens here is the following. There is a fine line, right? Because they want to see strength in others in order to respect them. So the only way to make someone aggressive respect you is to be aggressive as well. But you don't want to be that much aggressive, because if you step on their toes, then you make them your enemy. So it is kind of a paradox and kind of a trade-off, because you do want to seem like you're strong and not show weakness, but you don't want to seem that strong that you are a threat to them. And in that case, you are their mortal enemy, right? So that's why I even say that in any relationship between two dominants, in any negotiation, there's going to be 99% of probability that they're going to become enemies, because one side disrespects the other and it's just downhill from there. But in 1% of cases, something very interesting happens, which is they are both able to recognize the value of each other. So each side sees the other side as a killer, a winner, a dominant, but they don't disrespect each other. And in that case, they even become almost best friends, because they both have the same tastes and the same aggressiveness. But back to my story. What started happening was that I started drawing boundaries on these people, and soon I've come to realize that they really make no concessions. So what happened was, I thought, hey, let me just draw the boundary here and say, I'm not going to lower the price, I'm not going to do overtime in terms of work, or whatever it is, because they will understand, or even if they don't like it, they're going to respect it. But what I found is something completely different, which is that they don't accept it and they just go ballistic, because this type of aggressive personality, they just want to dominate others. They want a hunt, they want a kill. And if they don't get it, then they're going to become very angry. So what ended up happening was that by drawing these boundaries, these people started to react very negatively. And that's when I realized that none of them was ever going to do anything for me. They were shameless in their approach. They just wanted to go in, take as much as they could from me, and then get out. They had no intentions of giving me anything at the end of the day. But that was also my opportunity, because what I've realized was the following, and this is my policy in the present. Unless you have a very good opportunity, like a great job offer, a great position, a great client, there is no reason whatsoever for you to tolerate a dominant, because it's a losing game. You are going to get nothing. You are going to get something. You're going to get abused. That's what you're going to get. But you are going to get nothing from them in terms of concessions, in terms of rewards, in terms of perks. The only thing that they're going to do is to take as much as they can from you and then just to leave you to the side and step to the next target. So what happened was I started resisting these people and drawing boundaries in a much more assertive manner. I started subjugating them. And then something magical happened, which is another insight, which is that a dominant or an aggressive person, they only have threats and they only have intimidation. Once they lose that weapon, they literally have nothing, and their personality just crumbles. So what I've seen was that if a client came to me and they really needed me, and they started being aggressive and trying to tell me what to do, and I would say respectfully, I'm not going to do anything in terms of that. I'm not going to give you a discount. I'm not going to give you special terms. You're going to be a client just like everybody else. At first they exploded, but because they needed me and they could not get out of the relationship, they become completely different. They became needy, they became almost repulsive in their demeanor, just chasing. And that's our insight here, which is that the only weapon that a dominant or aggressive person has is their set of threats and their intimidation. If you are not affected by it, you literally have nothing else to use. It's almost like they have an empty shell, and they give the appearance of being intimidated or they give the appearance of being dominant. But if you break through that appearance, you see that what's inside is nothing. So if you are in a negotiation with an aggressive or dominant person and you don't cave to their intimidation, what's going to happen is that their personality completely switches. They're going to break. They're going to completely revert to another type of personality who is very needy. It's almost like they lose their own identity in the process. If I can't threaten you, then I don't really know who I am. That's the effect that occurs. And how this is translated in real time is the following. You're in a negotiation with an aggressive person. So in real time, what they're going to do is they use some sort of power word or intimidation or threat, and then they use their body language to support it. They get in a very powerful pose, then they use something like eye contact, intense eye contact, and they use silences. Something like saying, hey, we need this done, period. And because of that, there's going to be tension in the air. And the way that you cave is by trying to kill that tension. So the way that you resist this type of intimidation is by overriding your brain. When it's telling you, kill the tension, make it comfortable, ignore it. You have to realize it's not your job to kill the tension. If they're creating the tension, let them hold the tension. So if you can hold that eye contact and you can be as intimidating as them, and you can hold as much pressure as they do, what's going to happen is they are going to see that it doesn't work. And because of that, they are going to try more and more, they're going to get desperate, they may get emotional, they may insult you, but when they really realize that there's no way out, either they blow up the negotiation or they revert to being needy if they really need it. And this is why I say, unless you really need a dominant, there's no reason for you to tolerate one, because they're going to get emotional, they're going to insult you, and the only way to appease them is literally to kiss the ring, to say, I respect you, you are superior, let's move on, and I'm going to give you anything you want. Otherwise, there's no way to have a healthy relationship with one. Actually, there is no way to have a healthy relationship with one. But what I'm saying is, gauge whether it's worth it to have an unhealthy relationship with one or not. It depends on what the potential is for you. And finally, some insights if you are dominant yourself. What I mean by this is the following. Myself, I have two types of archetypes, if you will. I'm a passionate and I'm a dominant. So I'm always fast, but sometimes I'm emotional and sometimes I'm logical. I think that I tend to be more of a passionate, more emotional in everyday life, but sometimes I am a dominant and I can be a little bit short and I can be a little bit aggressive. So one thing which is key here is realizing that you don't always need to win and you don't always need to extract as much value as possible from the other side. Sure, someone who has an aggressive personality, you are going to have that little part of your brain that says, hey, assert yourself, show that you're the boss. But in reality, it's not that productive. You can be the boss without trying to, extort this person or to try and get as much as you need from them. It may be more productive to make a few concessions and then win in the long term because you have a long-term client or a long-term job. So it's very important that if you have a dominant tendency yourself, fight that urge to really subjugate the other person and take it down a notch. Just take it one step further. That is, ask for one less thing than you usually do. That's already going a long way. Because if the other side sees that you compromise a little bit versus not compromising anything, that's going to make the relationship a lot more healthy in the long term. So these are some insights in terms of how a dominant personality type actually works. They only care about winning, if possible, winning something exclusive, making the other side lose, and making them realize that they've lost and that you've subjugated them. Usually, they are very focused on the short term and they cannot create healthy relationships in the long term. It's very important that if you don't have a good reason to tolerate one of these, don't get into a relationship or a negotiation with one because you have nothing to gain. It's not going to get better, they're not going to make any concessions, and they're going to be very emotional and have a lot of whims. And you are going to be the one who deals with the consequences in all of these scenarios. So again, if you don't have a good reason to be subjugated by dominant or to tolerate this behavior, don't get into a relationship or a negotiation with one. And if you are a dominant yourself, realize that you should fight that urge to win every single time, because you are just going to poison every single relationship. And finally, remember the only weapon that a dominant has is their set of threats and their set of intimidation techniques. So if they don't use them, or if they can't use them, they are going to revert to a needy type of personality. Threats are all that they have. So if they can't use them, then they have nothing left. It's almost like their personality just shatters. If you found the video useful, consider liking and subscribing, and remember to check out our channel for more persuasion, negotiation, and communication techniques. Thank you so much for watching.